thank you, Madam Toastmaster. It's the last time I do a tree pose for you. When I was 12 years old, my family moved from Springfield, Massachusetts to the Washington, D.C. area, specifically Silver Spring, Maryland. And over the next 4 years, as I was a young, impressionable teenager, I got to learn a lot about what went on in Washington, D.C. And it was a period of time that was very much influential in the rest of my life, the things that I did and the things that I learned during these 4 years. And obviously, far more things happened than I have time to talk about today. But there were three areas, three items, incidents in particular, that I will share with you today to give you a feel for my Washington years. First of all, when we first got to Washington, my father made sure we visited the various memorials and so forth, and I was particularly impressed with the Washington Monument. And I looked up at this 555-foot high sphere going up into the sky and saying, I need to conquer this, but I'm not quite sure how. So later that summer, some friends, high school friends of mine and I decided we were going to go and visit the Washington Monument and get to the top. And there is an elevator inside the Washington Monument, and we'll get you to the top. But there was also a line for the elevator, and we didn't want to wait in line. So I said, well, there's another way up. There are stairs. Now, today you can't use the stairs for security reasons. I'm not sure what that security is, but I think the stairs are starting to break. But at any rate, there are 898 stairs in the Washington Monument. Now, I should have been overwhelmed by this, but I wasn't, because I was a paper boy at the time, and I delivered newspapers in apartment buildings that were 3 stories, and so I was constantly climbing stairs every day. So I figured, well, what's a few more stairs? 898, and so might as well try to set a record while I'm at it. I made it to the top, all 898 steps in 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Whether that's a world record, I don't know. I never checked the Guinness Book of World Records. But it sure sounded good, and we got to the top and said, I wonder what we can do going down. 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Wow. That's what it took to get down. After that, I totally collapsed on the lawn. And after some rejuvenation, I guess, I'm not sure how I got home, but I got home. So that was the way I treated many of the sites in the Washington area, to try to conquer them. Now, having conquered the sites, then I had to start rubbing elbows with some of the politicians in the area. And the way I did that is my father was invited one summer to a National Press Club picnic. It happens every year. And the press is there, and many of the people from the administration and the Senate and House are also there. And so it was a very interesting time, and that was the point in time when I actually met Vice President Richard Nixon. And I have his autograph. I don't know where it is right now, but somewhere I have Richard Nixon's autograph. And he was in his old clothes, of course, because there was a softball game that day between the press and the people in Congress and the administration. Now, this is very important because I had a role in this softball game. Now, I remember at one point that the team that was not the press included for the third baseman was then Attorney General Will Rogers. And he was a pretty good third baseman, as it turned out. Now, playing first base, and there's only 2 or 3 people in here that will remember this name, but it was a senator from Tennessee by the name of Estes Kefauver. Does anybody remember that name? Art and Arnie and Fred. I knew that. He could not play very well. My assignment that day was to back up Senator Kefauver. So every time he missed the ball, I'd fetch it and toss it back to him. That happened quite a bit. And the other thing I remember about that game was when Richard Nixon got up to bat, he popped the ball up. He was not a very good sports person, as some of you may recall. Anyway, he popped it up to the second baseman. The second baseman caught it. Everybody's looking at the second baseman and said, don't hang on. So, and he dropped the ball, allowing the vice president to reach first base. So, that's kind of how Washington works, I learned. So we'll see how Mike Pence does in the same game this coming summer. So that was item number 2 I wanted to share. But having met some of these folks and backed them up, I figured, well, maybe as I get older, I want to learn more about the Congress. And so by the time I was 15 or 16, I I spent much of my summers just going to Washington, just going down to the Capitol building and hanging out in the Senate and the House and listening to people like Senator Everett Dirksen and others of that era. And it turned out the guards got to know me and they would let me to the front of the line ahead of the tourists. And so I always got right in, and that was pretty cool. Even once I went to college and came back in the summers, they still remembered me. And remember this one guard said, "Hey, your boy Nixon lost." I said, "No." But at any rate, they let me in. So it got a little boring in the Senate chambers after a while, so I thought, well, where's all the activity? It's in the committee hearings. And we've heard that this week. We've had the various committee hearings this week for nominations and for the what's going on as far as surveillance. And that's where the action was. And the particular action in those days was at the Senate Rackets Committee hearings. If you remember, former president of the Teamsters, Dave Beck, that was before Jimmy Hoffa. And then Jimmy Hoffa came along, and we don't know for sure whatever happened to him. But I used to go to those hearings, and I would be sitting 3 rows behind Jimmy Hoffa, who was testifying, and the person in charge of that committee was Bobby Kennedy. And Bobby Kennedy would constantly chirp on Jimmy Hoffa, and he'd talk about some guy, and Jimmy Hoffa said, "What about him?" And Bobby Kennedy said, "Well, he was a crook." And so he kind of Hoffa mumbled on, and Kennedy would ask him another question, and he'd give some evasive answer. "I don't really remember," he would say. And I remember Bobby Kennedy saying to him at one point, "Mr. Hoffa, you have a very convenient forgettery." And so a couple times a week I'd go down just for the entertainment value of these hearings. And so with that I became interested in politics and government, and thought maybe that was my calling and not weather. And to find out how I resolved this, you're going to have to wait for speech time.
A total Trey from downtown. My life, part 2, the Washington years. A very experienced speaker is giving back to the CC manual with organize your speech. It was historic and fun. So thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Carl. Historic and fun, excellent. The objective was to bring us major facts and ideas with support material and smooth transitions of facts and ideas. He began telling us when he was 12 that he is at the Washington Monument, and it's 550 feet high, 898 stairs. He was a paper boy. The other buildings were 3 stories high that he'd been up and down. Took him 8 minutes and 15 seconds to go up and less to come down. Beautifully given. It didn't sound like a statistical idea at all. It was a story. He told us a story rather than a speech, and I think that's the objective for all of us, to take these speeches and turn them into something that's just charming and something we can't wait to listen to. Vice President Richard Nixon, no matter how you feel about it, to be standing anywhere near these people, what a wonderful thing to have brought to us. Mm-hmm. He could have said a number of different things, but he brings us into a baseball game. Marvelous. Estes Kefauver. I'm going to go home and Google Estes. I want to know more about this with his pop-ups. And General Will Rogers, is that Will Rogers? Will Rogers? No. Okay, somebody else. Somebody different. Okay, Attorney General.
Treasurer for another administration.
Okay. Allowed into committee hearings where the actions were rackets with Bobby Kennedy and Jimmy Hoffa. Fabulous, wonderful information. Now again, what he had here was he was giving us statistics. Did that feel like statistics to you? Mm-hmm. He's telling us this wonderful story about this marvelous time of his life. It was also, he's 12, he's older, and he's older yet. But he's still a person in Washington and being let in because he is somebody. Carl's been somebody his whole life. Yay! Somebody of note. He had no option but to end up on television. I think, as looking for something that he could improve upon, when he began, there was a little bit of I couldn't quite understand where he was gonna go with things. I think you should have begun with 12 years at the monument and forgot whatever it is you said at the beginning. I was confused going, I don't know where he's going with this. You said a couple of times you were gonna say that this is item number 1, this is item number 2. I think you could have forgotten that completely as well. Overall, child is spent in Washington DC, fantastic. Your beginning, again, was a little searching. You needed to find an opening. This was a wonderful story. Thank you so much, Carl. Fabulous.